On the evening of April 1st, 2020, two men approach a flat above a Tesco store on University Road in South Belfast, while a third man keeps his distance. The flat's occupant comes to the front door and unintentionally shows himself to the watching third man. 3 days later, the occupant is shot dead. It turned out that the occupant who got shot was 36-year-old notorious Dublin gangster Robbie Lawler, and the men who went to the flat could well have been an assassination team. The murder continues to be the subject of a major police inquiry, and the circumstances surrounding the assassination mark an extraordinary merging of North and South criminals and changes the face of gangland. In this video, we'll give you the full story of the rise and fall of Irish crime boss Robbie Lawler. Everybody in Ireland knows the name Robbie Lawler, but who was he and how did he become one of the most feared criminals in Ireland? Born in 1986, Lawler grew up in Darndale on the north side of Dublin, a poor area with high unemployment at that time. He got involved in petty crime when he was a teenager and dropped out of school at 16. He started selling drugs to make money and quickly rose through the ranks of Dublin's criminal underworld. Lawler was known for his violent and ruthless character and was involved in numerous violent crimes, including armed robberies. Lawler's criminal activities extended beyond Ireland, and he had been linked to drug trafficking operations in the UK and Spain. He'd also been implicated in a number of high-profile murders in his country, although he's never been convicted of any of these crimes. Lawler's notoriety continued to grow, and he became one of the most wanted men in Ireland. He was arrested on several occasions and amassed over 120 convictions during his criminal career. However, he always managed to avoid lengthy prison sentences. In 2005, the first documented murder to which Lawler is believed to be connected is that of drug dealer Mark Byrne. He got into an argument with Lawler while both were incarcerated in Mountjoy Prison. Byrne got shot at a busy street just minutes after being temporarily released. This is one of the first signs of Lawler's brutal vengeance. He got arrested for the murder, but was never charged due to the lack of evidence. Then in 2008, Lawler got arrested for a shocking gun attack on a man who was minding a baby while sitting in a friend's car. A gunman came up to the car and fired 5 shots through the driver's seat window. The shooting left the man in critical condition and injured the baby. It's believed that the gunman was Lawler, who appeared to have some sort of personal grievance with racist elements. But again, he managed to avoid getting charged. A year later, in 2009, David Fred Lynch, another well-known gangland figure, was gunned down in North Dublin. On his 26th birthday, his body was found in a field by a passerby walking the dog. Gardaí believe Lawler, who was only 24 at the time, targeted him after a personal argument. However, Lynch was also known to the police as an associate of the leaders of one of the rival factions. Prior to his death, Lynch had received numerous threats. He allegedly got lured to the field after receiving a phone call asking him to meet. And the list goes on. In 2010, Lawler was framed for the killing of small-time criminal Noel Deans, who owed people a lot of money for cannabis. Although no one was charged, Gardaí believe Lawler was paid to carry out the hit. In a twisted act of treachery, Lawler perversely drank tea with Dean's heartbroken mother just hours after eliminating her son, showing just how cold-hearted Lawler really was. After this, Lawler fled the country and made a trip around the world. Meanwhile, in 2017, the so-called Drogheda feud kicked off as a drugs gang from Drogheda, led by gangster Owen Maguire, split into 2 factions after 2 youngsters decided to work for themselves. This new anti-Maguire faction was supplied by Lawler's brother-in-law, older criminal Richard Carberry. Although Lawler grew up with guys like the well-known gangland figure Mr. Big, he was considered a member of the rival anti-Maguire faction. However, he appeared to be more of a lone wolf, a freelance hitman, especially his last few years. Lawler had enemies everywhere and was not only a target for Maguire, but eventually also for Mr. Big, with whom he had a falling out over money. This resulted in them becoming sworn enemies. Lawler then emerged as a leading suspect in the February 2018 murder of Mr. Big's right-hand man and hitman Kenneth Finn. Around that time, a lot of violence was going on between the 2 factions, including stabbings and car bombings. Lawler was an associate of the leading member of the anti-Maguire faction. It is believed that Lawler pulled the trigger on his rival, mob boss Owen Maguire, in July 2018. Maguire, whose associates were involved in that deadly feud with the rival anti-Maguire faction, was shot multiple times and has been left paralyzed. Just an hour after the attempted murder of Maguire, Lawler was stopped by Gardaí. He was pulled over in North Louth for speeding with a flat tire and was found stripped to his underwear and doused in petrol. It's believed Lawler had done this to remove any traces of gun residue or DNA after the murder attempt. Meanwhile, Robbie's personal life was a mess. After he came back from his trip in 2017, he found out that the mother of his 2 kids had started a new relationship, and mildly speaking, Lawler was not happy about it. He began a campaign of threats and intimidation, which ultimately resulted in the assault of his ex-girlfriend and the attempted murder of her new mother-in-law in May 2018. Lawler got arrested and was sent to prison. While in prison, Lawler's brother-in-law Carberry got shot in a retaliation hit in November 2019. It happened just a couple of days before Carberry was about to move to the UK. At the scene, his wife and daughter tried to help him until paramedics arrived, but he didn't make it. Just a month later, Lawler was set free by the court, as miraculously all charges, including the assault and attempted murder, were dropped. He was clearly out for revenge for the Carberry hit while having money on his head himself. And when gang boss Cornelius Price, who recently died but was an opposing rival, was released from prison just a couple of months later, the feud escalated even more. As Lawler's life was under threat by major figures in Drogheda and Gardaí feared he would go to war with Coolock mobster Mr. Big, his release instantly put them on high alert. Secret recordings of Lawler while in prison say Lawler believed Mr. Big was behind the shooting of Carberry. By the time Lawler got out, Mr. Big and Cornelius Price had joined forces. Lawler was clearly losing control and, most of all, respect, and that must have made him paranoid. Days after Lawler's release, there was an incident as he came out of the gym.
Yes! That's only the start of it! That's only the start of it! That's only the start of it, Robbie!
He got mugged by younger associates of an opposing gang. They grabbed his gym bag and stole his flip-flops, later taunting Lawler by posting pictures in a TikTok video wearing them. The video maker is believed to be an associate of David Fred Lynch, the man who allegedly was gunned down by Lawler in 2009. In January 2020, all this culminated in one of the most shocking cases in Irish history, the death of 17-year-old Cian Mulready Woods. His remains were found on different dates and locations, together with the flip-flops. It's believed that Lawler and his gang had taken Mulready Woods to a house in Rathmullen and tortured him. Lawler was the chief suspect in the murder case. Mulready Woods was believed to be a member of the rival gang led by people like Cornelius Price. Additionally, Lawler must have known that Price was fond of the young Mulready Woods. Lawler allegedly planned to deliver some of the teenagers' remains on Price's doorstep, but the deliverers got spooked by Gardaí. Eventually, remains were dropped near the home of Mr. Big. The killing is regarded as a message to the rival Maguire faction to make sure they would know Robbie Lawler shouldn't be messed with. 3 months later, the almost inevitable happens. On April 4, 2020, the then 36-year-old Lawler was shot dead in broad daylight on Etna Drive in the Ardoyne area of North Belfast. Allegedly, Lawler went to the safe house expecting to collect money, but as soon as he entered the front door, a gunman entered through the back door. Lawler tried to flee, but was shot in the front yard. Hardly surprising, it's believed to have been a contract killing carried out by his rivals. The barrister's theory is that during the days before carrying out the hit, a 3-man assassination squad tracked Lawler's activities and went to his flat. 3 days prior to the shooting, they lured Lawler to his front door in order to get identified by the shooter. In court, it has been claimed that this shooter would be 17-year-old Levi Killeen, son of gangland killer John Dundon. Dundon is currently in jail for the murder by mistake of rugby player Shane Gagan. In court, it was said that Killeen went to Lawler's house together with his uncle, Ger Dundon, and the third man, Quincy Bramble, all 3 members of the Dundon gang. A theory that, according to the barrister, can be backed up by CCTV records. In the aftermath of the shooting, the trio got arrested in a car near the scene of the murder. However, they were released without being charged. According to the PSNI, the Northern Ireland Police, there was no evidence to link them to the actual killing. The release was quite frowned upon, since Irish investigators believed that this Dundon squad was a hit team. According to reports, Lawler was minded by the Dundons when he was in prison. He would have paid the Dundons money to protect him from his arch-rival Cornelius Price, and they would have offered him to continue their security even once he was released. However, Gardaí witnessed a handover of cash to McCarthy Dundon gang members from Limerick and believed it was a €50,000 payment in exchange for their assistance in luring Lawler to the scene, double-crossing him in an epic way. Other circumstances surrounding Lawler's death remain unclear. His killing has been described as a gangland-style execution, with reports suggesting he was shot multiple times in the head and body. The police have launched an investigation into the killing, and several arrests have been made in connection with the case. 2 men are in custody and being charged, but they're not the actual gunmen. They are Adrian Holland, who owned the house on Etna Drive, and Patrick Tier. They're still being held on suspicion of conspiring to murder. Robbie Lawler's life was one of crime and violence. He was a controversial and polarizing figure, both feared and respected in Ireland's underworld. His death marked the end of a turbulent and violent career, leaving behind a legacy of crime and chaos that continues to haunt Ireland to this day. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.